Hi everyone, welcome to another one of our academic success webinar series. Today we are going to be talking about managing the online classroom. Very important stuff for a lot of our School of Continuing Studies students, but I also know that on main campus there's a few online classes, and so thought we would have a good discussion of just kind of what that looks like and hopefully answer any questions that you guys might have. As always, to stay up to date on the most recent ARC happenings, you can follow us on social media. Our Facebook handle is at ARC Georgetown, and our Instagram handle is at ARC_Georgetown. We make sure we highlight all the upcoming webinars. We do a study tip Tuesday, a free app Friday once a month, and try to connect you all with as many campus resources as possible. So make sure you're following us. You can also find out a lot more of our resources on our website, which is academicsupport.georgetown.edu. There we have downloadable academic resources. If you're on main campus, there's information on our drop-in foreign language tutoring hours, other campus resources, and ARC newsletters to stay up to date. As always, this is our academic success webinar series schedule for this fall semester. Next week, so if you joined us today about managing online classroom, you might want to tune in next in 2 weeks on Wednesday, October 24th. We'll be going over online test taking strategies. We've gotten lots of questions about, so hopefully we'll provide some really good resources for you there. On Wednesday, November 7th, we're going to be talking about test anxiety tips. And then the 28th, right when we come back from Thanksgiving break, I believe that's right, we're going to talk about sleep habits, super important as we go into the final exam period. And then as always, our last webinar of the semester we will have on final exams. If you missed any of our previous webinars this semester, like getting back on track or habit building, those are all posted on our website, which is academicsupport.georgetown.edu. There you can also find out our old webinars from the past 2 academic semesters as well. All right, so I think the first place that we really want to get started when we're talking about online classroom spaces is what type of online class is it? And typically there are 2 types of online class, asynchronous and synchronous classes. So synchronous online classes are those that require students and instructors to be online at the same time. So just like if you are an on-the-ground student, you're going to be meeting every Wednesday at 6:30, but instead of in a classroom, you're going to be meeting an online space. So there's a predetermined time and space, usually on Blackboard or Canvas, that you'll be meeting on. As well, I'm just going to mute everyone to make sure that we are, as well as, predetermined time and space. For asynchronous classes, those are more done at your own pace. So this is where this professor or faculty member will upload all the course materials. Sometimes they'll release it to you all at once so you can work ahead if that's your thing, or sometimes they'll release it week by week. But the responsibility is really on the student to make their own schedule. Again, it's usually guided by a time frame set by the instructor, but the responsibility really lies on the student to make sure they're paying attention and doing all the work. So typically those are the 2 types of online class formats we'll see. All right, just to start off about some basics. First, obviously, check your technology. So if you are on an online class, you need to make sure that your technology is up to date. Typically, we're using Canvas or Blackboard at Georgetown. Also, things you might want to consider about is downloading Zoom or Skype. So in terms of office hours, connecting with other students, because you're not going to have that general office hour on the ground place, make sure you have the technology to be able to communicate with your professor and classmates.
Wonderful. So yeah, like Ashley said, definitely making sure your technology is up to date. You've got the necessary applications. You know how to contact the professor if something was to come awry during the classroom time. Knowing your course syllabus, the contract that you do have with the course, it will be a guide for you for the rest of the semester. So knowing when due dates and deadlines are, ensuring that you're keeping up to date with those. If you want some additional information, we've got really good webinars and resources on time management, creating a study schedule, but really making sure that you are keeping up to date with those due dates and deadlines, because you're going to be responsible for turning them in. You won't have that face-to-face contact, like Ashley mentioned, typically in an on-the-ground class. So making sure that you are responsible for those deadlines, and ensuring that you contact professors, faculty when you have any questions regarding upcoming deadlines and due dates. And of course, communicate often and early. We can't stress this enough, because you won't have that person-to-person contact. Making sure that you are able to effectively communicate, you know how to communicate to the professors when things come up, so that you are staying on track with your course requirements. Okay, so we're going to get into developing a routine. So making the course a priority. This would just be the same if you are in an on-the-ground class, making sure that you are prioritizing your academics and you're creating a schedule that allows time for in the class work as well as out of the class work. Okay, so looking at how can you develop a routine, how can you make a concrete schedule that incorporates the time for the class as well as outside of the class. So blocking off the same time each week to be in class. Again, if you don't necessarily have a designated class time, or you do have a designated class time, making sure that you are inputting that information into your calendar, into your planner, so that you have a set schedule, that you are not forgetting when you should be in class, that you are getting into a routine. Again, make this a non-negotiable. My rule is, if it's on my calendar, it's something I have to do, whether it's an academic commitment or a personal commitment. Make sure that you are putting that information on your calendar so it becomes a non-negotiable. And of course, log into the course frequently and consistently. Always be checking Blackboard or Canvas to see if there's any updates or announcements. Maybe the professor had shifted a class time, or there's information that is necessary before logging into the class discussion. So ensure that you are looking at those websites on a consistent basis. And as you can see, we have a little picture diagram of a Thursday schedule. So say that you've got work from 1 to 5, we're incorporating our commuting time, we want to get some dinner in, and then again, we've situated our online class from 6 to 7:30. I love that it's color-coded, so it stands out that you're situating yourself. This is the time that I'm designating to this course. Again, if we don't plan ahead, we might forget that we have to log into class. So making sure that you are planning ahead, maybe color coding it so it stands out even more.
Great. Thanks, Annie. So the other thing that I think is really important to hit home on with online classes is to get rid of distractors. And this is a really, really important piece, because as we kind of talk about, you really want to recreate that classroom environment, right? So the class is a non-negotiable at the same time every week, but we also want to make sure that you feel like you're engaged in that educational classroom setting. So do you work best at home? Is there somewhere else you can go to class? For me, when I took online classes, sometimes I would just stay later at work and use my office, because I knew that was kind of a safe space to get work done and be quiet. I knew no one would bother me. Other great suggestions are libraries. Do you have like a study or home office? If you do need to work from home, we're realistic and we realize city living is tough. There's not a lot of spaces to go to. So if you do need to work from home, simple things like close the door to keep out family, friends, children, roommates, pets, put a note on the door, say like, offline from 6 to 7:30, turning off cell phones, emails, TVs, right? So really making sure there's as little distraction as possible, because you're already going to be on the computer and it's really easy just to open up a new browser. So really just making sure that you're comfortable in this space, it works for you, that it's quiet, you're able to engage with the material, especially if you are going to have to, if you have a synchronous class, and you have to be on time online at the same time, there's probably some interaction around Zoom or conversations. Are you in a space where there's not a lot of background noise, or you're not going to, get a pop in from a roommate or a pet, something like that. And then the other big piece of this is reassessing as you go, right? So things change as the semester moves on. So what's working, what's not, and just continuing to check in with yourself every week to say, this is working, this is not, or maybe it's time I move different locations, or maybe I need to, work from the library more often instead of home.
Yeah, I really like this too, Ashley, because when we talk with students that are in on the ground classes, we talk about what is distracting factors that they need to think about. I mean, the thinking about where you're studying. Are you studying in bed? Are you actually creating an environment where you can be productive? Are you studying at a space in the library that is more of a people watching scenario rather than an actual study space? So it's still same rules apply for even online courses. It may be easier to get distracted because you are sitting by yourself at home or in your office space and you said, well, let me just pull up this online shopping website while I'm listening to discussion. Really, we want to eliminate those distractions so that you are simulating a classroom environment, you are engaged as much as possible so that you can be a productive member of the classroom and you can engage in a cooperative and really productive manner. So I think that this is really, really important for online classes.
Yeah, and especially important for our professional studies students who are often working at the same time, might be traveling for business. So honing in and knowing what works for you when the environment changes. Maybe you have to take a business trip, or maybe you have to visit family, that you're still able to kind of recreate that same environment no matter where you are. All right, this is a really important one, and that's, what does participation look like in an online class? And so just like on the ground classes, participation is the way the student engages in the class and with the course content. This is especially important in asynchronous classes because you're not showing up at the same time, you're not getting that kind of one-on-one time with your professor or your classmates. There's not kind of those obvious cues of what participation looks like to make sure that you're engaged in the material. Equally important with the online component, the more that you participate in the class, the more you're going to get out of your online experience. I think one of the feedback we get a lot from our students who are taking our online classes is just not the same. I feel like I didn't get a lot out of the class. And a lot of times when we start having those conversations of like, what did your participation look like? How did you engage with the material? Did you recreate that classroom environment? The answers tend to be no. And so for me, participating is the key to a successful online classroom experience. And most importantly, and this is where I think a lot of students get stuck, make sure you're clear on how your professor defines participation in the course, right? So I think for a lot of asynchronous classes, discussion boards are used a lot. And where you kind of can get into trouble around grades or participation grades not being where they were is you might be late on a couple discussion board posts. Read the discussion boards, check in daily. This will be something we'll talk about in a couple slides ahead, but how are you engaging with the course material on a daily basis? How are you engaging with the course material that your peers present on a daily basis, right? So discussion boards, blog posts, assignments, logging in. Professors can go in and track how many times you logged into the course. So it seems like silly, simple things, but they're really important to having a really positive outcome in the end. So if you are unsure of what participation might look like, or if it's not clearly defined in your syllabus, set up a time, talk with your professor, talk with their expectations of what is participation, and making sure you're getting the grades that you need.
Yeah, I think it's also really important to think about these assignments not as just a checkbox, as something that you just have to complete. I'm just going to make one comment on the discussion board and I'm done for the day. We want you to get deeper into the material to engage with your classmates. So is there a way, I think we'll get into this, is there a way you can set up one-on-one or study groups with members of the class on an online platform to have a discussion, to teach one another the material, to have an outside conversation that deepens your understanding of what's going on in the classroom? really engage with the material and don't look at it as, okay, this is a task I just have to check off. How can you really engage? How can you interact with the material, like Ashley said, in order to enhance your participation and, of course, get more out of the online experience?
All right. Last, the most important is probably stay connected, right? So I work a lot with my online students about connecting with a peer in class. Usually if you're using Blackboard or Canvas, there's usually a course list. You also can message people individually within those courses. And so reach out to someone in the class or reach out to someone you commented on their discussion board with. Form a study group outside of class. It's really important, I think, when we talk about the classroom experience, one of the things that online students sometimes miss is, you know, the 5 or 10 minutes before or after class when everyone's kind of getting settled or packed up to go home saying like, oh my gosh, that quiz was really hard. Or what did you think about this chapter? And that's really important for not only just staying connected, but feeling that you're staying engaged in the material, that you're having your questions answered, and to make sure that you have a comprehension and understanding of the material. So form a study group, connect with a peer in class. If you are an online program, find someone you can kind of buddy up with throughout the online program so that you can kind of talk through, bounce ideas off of, troubleshoot. Take advantage of office hours. If your professor does not have office hours, ask them to set up office hours, right? I know a lot of faculty in our MPS programs do online office hours once a week and no one takes advantage of them. If that doesn't work for you, set up a regular call Zoom session with your professors regularly to do check-ins. That's really, really important. And I think I can't hit home on this enough. If you have questions or you need clarity, reach out and ask, because that's where I think we kind of run into the pitfalls, run into some barriers, is not staying connected. Use your resources. I meet with students for academic accommodations and just academic support with Zoom sessions and online. I know our library does that as well as our writing lab at SCS. So the resources are there, even if you're an online student. All right. I don't think we have any questions from today's session, but if you do have questions, you can always reach out and get back in touch with us. Again, I am Ashley Bray. I'm the Disability and Learning Skills Advisor for the School of Continuing Studies. My colleague Annie Blott is the Learning Skills Specialist on main campus. Feel free to email us if you have any questions. As always, we have the feedback survey. Feel free to provide us with some feedback, suggestions for upcoming webinars. And if you have any questions, make sure you reach out, make sure you check out our website, follow us on social media, and we will see you all in 2 weeks for our next one. Have a great day.